Hello and welcome everyone to the Roller Champions podcast. I am Stealth Ninja, and I'm you here with Flirt
Hello.
and Justin, who's muted.
Hello.
Very professional.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
We have Justin here, who is our resident Roller Champions pro. He was a number 2 NA, number 8 in the world for the pre-alpha period. And go ahead and tell us a little about yourself.
So I played the game back in June after leaving Rocket League for about 4 years of competitive play, playing across esports teams and whatnot, and switched to Roller Champions. And currently, it's what I'm completely dedicated to. I do it as much as I possibly can. On the 4th day of the pre-alpha, I played for 24 hours straight, and I was quite surprised to see that I was number 2 in North America, number 8 on the global leaderboards. And since the pre-alphas ended, I run the Roller Champions League, which is currently one of the largest Discord servers for the game. We do monthly giveaways, and we do just about everything we can to keep the hype going for the game while we wait for it to come out.
Awesome. Sounds good. And for those just tuning in, make sure, if you haven't already, follow the channel. We also have a YouTube channel where we post not only just our podcasts after they're over, but also for the future, we're going to be posting, like what you just saw, montages and community spotlights from players of the game. And we also have a Twitter. Unfortunately, we lost our last Twitter due to some technical difficulties. Then the new one is RC Podcaster. Basically, it should be super easy to find. All the links are down below, beneath the stream. And I think we should start off by talking to you, Justin. What was during your pre-alpha experience, like what competitive aspect, like what was your competitive experience playing with the best players? Being one of the best players, what was that experience like?
Quite early on, it was really easy to get into because I had played so much Rocket League in the past, and the physics of the game is something that's really easy to learn. But I really want to say it was that night, just a couple hours into the game after the E3 announcement, that I realized that I was going to be quite good at this game, and that I was going to be able to figure it out much quicker than the people that I had seen around me playing the game. The first, I would say, 3 days, you really didn't notice anybody specific that stood out, and it wasn't until the fourth day where I had sat down and played for as long as I did that I kept running into Mob Spies and Insanity and Raptor and all of these other really good players. Um, those matches where everybody in the lobby was grinding for this competitive scene and had figured out just about every aspect of the game. Those matches are ones that I can't wait for people to see because they really are the whole soul of the game, and it really shows how much potential this game has as an esport.
Absolutely, and just kind of looking at like some of those names you like, they were all top 20 players, so like you were neck and neck with some of the best players, and it almost kind of felt like you were, I don't know, in the esports scene at that point because you were playing all these games with the best players against the best players, having these somewhat intense matches. I would assume a lot of people don't get to experience that, and what you saw just before, like I said, was a montage of Justin playing from the pre-alpha, and some of those shots were just incredible. Just one of those, the patented reverse shot.
Yeah.
If you want to go, if you just want to go over that for a second, tell how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, there was Fickle Platypus and a bunch of other people that, very quickly we were sharing videos on Reddit, seeing who could do what and what kind of shots have we not seen before. And it wasn't long until I realized that you could do emotes and shoot at the same time. And for me, the emote that I used a lot was the one where I would hang upside down. And it was really quick that I figured out how to use the emote while in the air and then shoot the ball immediately following while still staying suspended upside down. And that's kind of where that shot came from.
All right, so what kind of mechanics did you actually like use? Because you were playing with a bunch of top 20s. Like, obviously, you gotta have some like high elo mechanics to be able to play at that kind of level.
Well, yeah, and the skill ceiling itself isn't all that high yet. I think there's still a lot of room to come, and we're definitely going to see a lot crazier things. But right off the bat, there's things you need to learn, like jumping to gain more speed on the walls. If you jump at the height of the walls, you gain a lot more speed. Um, Really, it's all about just maintaining your speed, um, being able to play really well on the walls and down through the lanes, really understanding your surroundings.
Okay. In chat, don't forget we are gonna read comments for each topic this time around. Unlike last time we waited to the end, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna like have your opinions and read them off.
Yes, for sure. We're gonna be talking with you guys, so make sure if you're in chat, let us know what your experience was, some tips that you maybe have for some new players. I know one small thing for first learning the game that will get you learn the game a lot faster, get you a lot better, is definitely learning the momentum and how you can utilize that with all of the arena, like just utilizing the crouch mechanic to just gain incredible speeds, going up and down the lanes. Like you see in the clip, he's going 100 kilometers per hour and no one can even catch him. Stuff like that, where you're almost untouchable. And for some people like Justin, that was how he would climb. He would just.
That's the key. Yeah, exactly. And staying at that speed, very early on, the whole pre-alpha, at least the experience of it was, if you know things that other people don't and you're using those to your advantage, you're untouchable. And so really early on, I had figured out being able to reach 130 and 140 much before a lot of other players had, and that really helped me just kind of slam through wins because I was doing things that people weren't prepared to defend and they weren't prepared to figure out. And by the time they had, it was too late. It takes 45 seconds to put in a 5-point shot.
Yeah, I see, like, when I see a lot of clips of new players, I'm seeing a lot of not letting go of that right trigger button and just like kind of skating nonstop up and down the walls without leaving like any room for them to gain speed that is going to benefit them in making a goal go around faster.
Yeah. There were a lot of people that were kind of using, I believe it's called pumping. They just kind of do it, as they please, and they're just still trying to figure it out. But really, because the map is so symmetrical, all you really have to do is form a pattern, form a strategy, which walls to crouch on and which walls not to. And you start combining the two, and you start to find whole new ways to move yourself around these lanes.
Yeah, And a couple other things that you would do, not just like going up the wall and dodging, that which by itself created like a mind game where it made it harder for people to get you off the wall so you could keep that mechanic. There was also one really cool mechanic that I saw was lane jumping, and that was going up like just like the last clip. You went up the wall with and you were able to get like usually halfway up the wall, but then you would go off that center island and you would end up going through the air and over almost half the lane, maybe more. And when you can do that consistently down both lanes, it makes it almost impossible for people to touch you because you are in the air for so long, and it's impossible to hit you in the air. At least from my experience, I didn't see anyone get hit.
Oh yeah, I mean, more than almost impossible. Once you make that jump and you're up in the air, if nobody was able to catch you right before your jump, you have now cleared that whole lane. It's now a complete free pass on that lap.
Yeah. Okay.
And that kind of leads into the idea that with all these great mechanics that you're utilizing to bring the ball around the ring the fastest or the smartest way, and it's almost impossible to stop you. That kind of brings a kind of like where you're talking about the skill ceiling. A lot of people are complaining that the skill ceiling is too low and how it's super easy to get these 5-point goals. But the hardest part is defending. Everyone's figured out the offense portion of the skill ceiling, and that limit has almost been reached. And it was reached for some players. There's maybe a little bit of room for, stuff to find, and with altercations to the game when it finally comes out, I'm sure there's going to be different things people can find. But with the defensive side, you have to figure out how to stop these players going 120 down the lanes, doing these lane jumps, figuring out how to work as a team to stop that ball as fast as possible so the game doesn't end in 45 seconds, minute 30, when these games can last usually 7, even 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, offense is tough to deal with. I really think we haven't cracked the code on how defense works yet. And I think there's still a lot to learn on the defensive side of the game. But, some things that, we saw defenders doing at the end of the game we call it corner camping, and that's where you wait at the corner for them to come down off the wall, and you kind of figure it out from there and try to hit them. The method that I found to be the best was to follow behind the player. You've got that slipstream so that you gain more speed when you're coming behind them. And instead of trying to find a way to just cut them off and take the ball, mimic their moves and mimic their pattern down the track at a different speed, slightly faster, until you catch up to them. And once you start mimicking them, you learn to predict them. And when you learn to predict them, you learn to catch them.
Yeah, and I'm just reading chat. Mercia, she was at UBXP, and we got to talk with her a little bit about that. And she said most of my games went into overtime with 0-0 because people could defend. Now that's interesting because although at UBXP, probably a decent amount of the players had never even heard of the game or played the game, though it was only like a 4-day pre-alpha. I think that's cool to see how people are when they're first learning, they're learning the defensive portions first, not the offensive portions, which can make for a lot closer games going to overtime every single time. Yeah. That's kind of how you want it. You want, like, for this game in ranked when it comes out, you're going to be focusing directly on defense, because offense at right now is going to be a lot easier to figure out, and that by itself is going to almost define the beginning portion of whatever competitive or ranked portion of World Champions when it comes out.
Yeah, I think defense is really, especially so in the next playtest, we're going to see the defense and we're going to see the passing plays, because those are two things that really have not been explored to the extent that offense was. Offense, we know what the arena lets us do and what it doesn't let us do. We had players riding on the ceilings at the end of the pre-alpha. Offense has figured out the code is cracked. Defense, on the other hand, there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's still a lot of strategies that need to be figured out so that we can create these really intense 5-7 minute games.
Yeah.
Another thing that was mentioned in chat, Raptor said, just stand in the net. And that's referring to something that a couple of people found, that you were able to, with a little bit of, I think with either a certain character and a little bit of luck, you could get your character to stand in the net. And even if the goal was lit up and someone threw the ball in there, I think it was like pretty much 100% of the time, you would just catch the ball and it would stop the goal from happening. And that was just, when I saw that, it broke my heart. That something like that's got to get patched out, because that
Yeah,
can get
no, I
abused
don't
so
think that'll
hard.
stay. I
That can
can't
get abused so hard.
I can't see that staying in the slightest. There's, it's nifty, it's funny, but there's just, if you're sitting in the goal, it's just, and you can't get it through. It doesn't. The ball won't let you. It won't let you go past them. I would imagine that in due time we'll see players just slide off of that net if they hit it. They won't be able to stay standing inside.
Of course.
Well, I'd like to go over the more offensive aspects, like what kind of tips we could give to those just starting out to help them improve with their gameplay.
Well, I mean, if we go straight to the start of the match, obviously you got to learn to jump up the walls, because you jump up one wall, and by the time you're coming down off of that wall, you're going to be really set up. But we kind of talked on that a little bit, so I want to talk about wall dodging and get into that side of things a little bit. Wall dodging essentially is when you go up a wall, right at the height of your, the highest point on that wall that you can reach. If you dodge to either left or right, what's going to happen is the opposing player doesn't know how to defend that, and you'll see down there, it's a juke essentially. And the reason you dodge so high up on the wall is because you don't lose any momentum. Because you stop, you're going to gain that momentum right on the way back down. All it essentially does is messes with the mindset of the player who's anticipating you to come back down at a certain angle and at a certain time.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite mechanics I'm gonna learn, because it's like, if you look at Rocket League, you can like juke out your opponent, like, oh, I'm gonna hit this way, psych, I hit it the other way. It's kind of a similar idea where you're going up the wall and these people are at the bottom waiting for you, and you're like, okay, are they waiting to like where I'm going to go currently, or if I dodge, are they going to be there waiting for me? Should I dodge backwards and go for like a lane jump?
Right.
There's a lot of possibilities, and I think it's almost meta creating, because you can combine a couple of these mechanics, like the wall dodge and the lane jump, along with some mind games, and you could be almost untouchable.
The lane dodge is pretty good. Go ahead.
As Raptor said in chat, like, even at the height of your arc, you're essentially standing still when you're coming down, but if you kind of dodge ball at the highest point, you're getting that little bit of forward momentum going into that pumping down.
Yeah. Another thing that is, I really saw nobody doing it, so I mean, for all I know, it could be not very great, and that's the dodge jump. And that's where, in a situation where you don't have the ball, you jump, and immediately following that, you dodge. It gives you a really significant burst of speed straight out the gate. Like you see down there, I see that. I do it in kickoffs and things like that.
Yeah.
In terms of when it's useful, I would say it's useful in any point that you screw up or make a mistake and you lose your momentum. I believe that doing that dodge jump will allow you to gain momentum significantly faster than other known methods, or like the tutorials method of just trying to find your speed and a slow rise. That jump dodge gives you a pretty decent amount of speed right out the gate.
Now, with looking at the mechanics we've talked about, which of these would you think is going to be the hardest to master? I think, like, keep in mind, like, obviously none of these are perfect. They've got a lot of like small things you can do with them. Which one do you think is going to be the hardest to not only learn but to master?
I honestly think that aside from the mechanics, the arena itself is going to be very hard to master, because it's not while it's symmetrical, the map is created on a non-flat surface, and each one of these lanes has its own way of working.
Yeah.
And it's really just about finding a consistent route to go the whole way through it, without losing momentum. At any point that you're losing momentum, you've got room for improvement in those spots. And while I think the mechanics are interesting and I think that they're considered advanced, I don't think they're necessarily hard to learn. And I would say just being able to carry the ball consistently, and predict opponents, is going to be the biggest challenge of them all for the people that are looking to play competitively.
Yeah. And like I've said, like we mentioned, all of these mechanics that you're saying is like they're not going to be hard to learn. That's where it's like that's where the defensive part comes in. That's going to be the hard part of climbing up is not just learning these offensive mechanics, but how to counter everyone else who already knows these and are using them to climb a lot faster than you. But speaking of people who are climbing, what besides some of the players you've maybe played with, what players stood out to you? Like, what were there any players that stood out? Like, what were they doing that's made them stand out? Stuff like that.
Yeah, easily, without a doubt, out of all the players that I played with, Raptor and Insanity are a force to be messed with in this game. You know, and I say that because there were not a lot of people that were able to consistently beat myself and Mob Spies in games when we played. But I mean, those two guys as a team, they are unstoppable in most circumstances. I mean, really inspirational as a player to have the opportunity to play with them and watch them play because I knew just by playing a couple matches with them that they were on the same page as me and they were doing such a great job at it that, you know, to this day I still think about, you know, they're, in my opinion, gonna be really well-known players if they keep it up whenever this next playtest comes out.
Yeah, I would say from my perspective, from the time that I played, I didn't get super high MMR. I think I hit like 3,000, where all the top players were just over 4,000. But from my experience, I played with you against you a couple times, Justin, and although you were pretty much carrying every game, we were definitely able to put up a fight, me and Fleur, because we do a decent amount of the pre-alpha.
Yeah.
And from our experience, I feel like besides the games with you and a couple random people I don't think we've seen since, I think most of the games were pretty easy to kind of handle. There were a couple of times where it's just like, oh, I clearly messed up, and I got punished for it, and I could have done this better, and it would have been an easy win. But for the most part, I think this game, while it has a little bit more mechanic wise, like with your controller, has a little bit more you know, you can do than like something like Rocket League, where you have jump, boost, drift, and air roll. You have like a few things, but with a lot of stuff you can do. Whereas this game, it's less stuff you can do mechanic wise, but controls are there's a lot more to it. So the game for me was learning the controls, and I only started learning a little bit of the mechanics, and that's where I ended the pre-alpha.
I want to go over like what can we do as a team to improve our gameplay? Like how would we set up for passes? How would we set up for tackles, like blocking, and it's like how would we position ourselves across the map and next to each other to actually defeat the enemy to win the game?
Well, I think something that's very ignored so far in the game is this slipstream mechanic that we have. And if you don't know, that is, I mean, this mechanic's been in games that go far, you know, as far back as like Sonic Riders on the GameCube and stuff. And that's when you're riding behind somebody, you gain speed off of their turbulence, and it allows you to catch up to them in a really easy way. And I didn't see that get used a lot. Why that is, I'm not necessarily sure. Maybe people were just more comfortable just trying to find their own way to attack and this and that. But it's a mechanic in the game that you should know, and it's one that you should use. However, it is important to know that, to my knowledge, you can only use slipstream, that mechanic, on an enemy that you're chasing, and that you cannot follow behind your teammate and receive slipstreams, which I think is a little odd. I think it should just be all around. You should be able to follow behind your teammate and receive that slipstream. But at my level, I guess you could say, or the other pros levels, I'm sure it's not that much of a difference to where I would think if teammate slipstreams was a thing that it would really affect too much, because I would think it really is used for catching the opponent.
Yeah, and you said it wouldn't affect too much at high levels, and that's mainly because right during the pre-alpha, the main way of scoring was mainly having one person carry and maybe the other two just knocking people over and getting in their way, and you just have that one person going around the ring by themselves. Whereas if you have if you implement a way for teammates to slipstream off each other, that may help a different kind of play style that'll allows for better passing opportunities, so that you can even still go 100 kilometers down the lane, but you can have two people doing that, and then going past each other, switching spots while throwing the ball to each other, making it almost twice as hard for anyone to stop them because you have to stop two people at once because they can always just pass it last second, and that would be a force to be reckoned with. That would be almost unstoppable, in my opinion.
Another thing that I want to talk about is I want to kind of get into the idea of, there are all these things that got talked about in Roller Champions. We have all this great feedback, and people had posted on the Ubisoft forums about their entire experience. But I noticed a select few things for the benefit of esports, which hadn't been discussed. And one of those big ones that I really want to propose, and there, what better time to do it than while the game's in pre-alpha, and while I'm sure the developers are still discussing all of these things, is that the win conditions of Roller Champions as it is right now does not benefit the current esports scene, and I'll tell you why. As it stands right now, with the win conditions, the way the match works is it's like 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. Whoever has the most points at the end wins, and that's all fine and dandy. If it goes into OT, the clock is extended to 10 minutes, and if you reach that 10-minute mark and the game is still tied, it ends in a draw. And then aside from that, there's a score limit. So if you score 5 points, no matter how far into the match it is, the game is over. And the issue with that in terms of esports is I imagine some team coming over from the EU, big grand final match ending in a 45-second goal. The match is over, everybody goes home. It's just not as entertaining as what it could be. And so what I propose is a complete change to the win condition of the game, and that is 7 minutes, max score wins, goes into overtime, the next score wins. It doesn't matter if it takes 15 minutes. Someone's got to win that match. You can't have an esports match end in a draw. It just doesn't work that way. And so with the current win conditions, I really do worry that would be something that affects the esports scene, that us as a community and us as the players don't really have any control over.
Yeah, and a little 2 cents on that is while having it in a draw is bad, especially if you have, like, let's say a tournament with a bracket format, you can't have a tie, otherwise you just have to keep playing, right? That whole 10 minutes of just a tie would have to just be replayed over and over until there's a win, rather than just ending it there or ending it when someone scores a goal. Because, like, eventually someone's going to make a mistake, someone's going to be able to score, it'll end the game, versus restarting, everyone has a fresh mind. You have this 10-minute game over and over. Like, when you look at something structured like FIFA, like the World Cup, you have this group stage where it has a round robin, and you have like win, loss, and draw, but that's because, and you can compare them afterwards and you can count draws, but then they go into a bracket and you can't have a draw. Especially, those are 90-minute games. Think of this as just like a 10-minute game, but eventually your fingers get tired, and that would just be just draining.
Like, even for the people watching these competitive scenes, it would be a nightmare for them for a game to end in 45 seconds, like you said, because they could have spent like $200 on a plane ticket,
exactly,
$50 on their actual ticket, and they're there for 2 hours maximum. Like, they probably get very little to no enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, if this game's going to work as an esport, it's got to be on a set time limit, because you can't form a schedule around a map that might take 7.5 minutes or a match that might take 35 seconds. I mean, you don't know. And of course you can do best of 3 and this and that. But I as a pro would hate to be playing against some other pro team in a big tournament. We've been practicing for weeks, and the reason that my team lost and went home is because we got unlucky and couldn't catch this guy, and he scored 1 goal. Yeah, it might have been 5 points, but he scored 1 goal, and that would just be a real, a kick. I would much rather prefer him score a 5-point goal and let it be as serious as it is, but give the other team an opportunity to come back with a set time limit and no max score cap on the match.
It's also it's kind of frustrating as well, because they could get that 5-point goal, but even by the end of that, they could have figured out how to stop the guy that's carrying the ball, but they would never get a chance to like implement their strategy to stop him, because then the game would be over.
Yeah, and so that's kind of a big thing that I would really hope for, and like I said, because it's pre-alpha, these are the times to make these decisions. We can't make this decision 5 months after the game. It comes out and it's just not doing all that great as an esport, because it's not as interesting, it's not as entertaining. From a viewer perspective, I'm sure I wouldn't want to watch my two favorite Goliath teams go at it for 35 seconds. What are you going to do there?
Yeah.
But aside from the win conditions of the game and why I think that could be detrimental to the enjoyment of the game as an esports viewer, I want to talk about other things that are detrimental to the game as a whole. And a big one for that is custom chat. It's in my opinion that this game, Roller Champions, it doesn't need custom chat. I would like to think the addition of custom chat creates a toxic environment and does more bad than good in a game like this, a competitive sports game. Anybody that's played Rocket League knows you're probably better off shutting off custom chat. You can't get into a match without arguing over something or someone else backseat coaching telling you how to play. And I think that Roller Champions, the quick chat does everything you need. Complimenting someone on a shot, saying GG at the end of the match. If you want to message somebody and ask them to play and ask them to group up or whatever, you can do it after the match. There's no reason to have a custom chat to talk in the middle of a match, especially when the replays are 4.5 seconds long.
Yeah. And a lot of games that I've seen in just these past few years and past that, every game that has the ability to just talk to, like, type out whatever you want to talk about in the middle of the game has just been in negative in almost every way. There's never something that you like, even like there's 6-second replays, and during that 6 seconds you're not going to get a full thought out, and you're going to end up typing during the game. You're going to be missing the game. You're going to be AFK. You're going to be detrimenting your team just because you want to say something probably negative or something. Even if it's criticism, it can wait until the after the match. You can go over and be like, oh, hey, I did mess up here. Hindsight's 2020. But when you're doing it in the middle of the game and you're trying to focus on winning, it just kind of tones down the mood. Like, you're kind of into it, and then all of a sudden someone's like, look at this guy. He's so bad. And then you're just like, well, even if it like motivates you to do better, you're still kind of in that like,
oh, but it doesn't.
This guy doesn't trust me.
Nah, I myself, when I see teammate doing that, and they're not even playing the game, they're sitting in the middle of the lane typing out a paragraph about how bad I'm playing. So instead of typing it out and letting them get their 3 laps that they need to win, how about you try to stop them and prove me wrong?
Yeah, I just don't think this is the game for custom chat. I really think that the quick chat system does fine, and I'm sure there are pros and cons to the custom chat system, but there are more negatives. Immediately, I guarantee it, the addition of a custom chat system also requires the addition of a report system, because they will be flooding in the day custom chat comes.
Yeah.
I am one of many who will happily admit that in my free time playing this game, I found it more frustrating than any competitive sports game I've ever played. And that frustration is easily taken advantage of by the anonymity of a Ubisoft username, where somebody just wants to type it out, take their frustration out on whoever they want to blame. And I just really think that this game will thrive much better without one.
All right.
Yeah.
I think before we talk about the recent events that have been happening for this game, where this game has been popping up, people have been playtesting it, I want to just ask you guys, each of you, one question.
Okay, go ahead.
What, with regards to like competitive scene or esports or just the game in general, what's that one thing that you feel like the game's missing, that they may, even whether they add it or not, like one thing you really want to see that could very positively affect the game? Like, I know the change in the win condition, not having any custom chat, like maybe slightly different mechanics. I know these are all things that we talked about. What's something else that you can think of?
I would like a free training arena where you're by yourself with the ball. You can just practice running up and down the lane and the walls and trying to get set a time limit for yourself. Try to beat that time limit. Try to go as fast as you can. While also incorporating like dodges and jumps and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that idea. I think having a place, because during the pre-alpha, all you could do is queue into a game where you'd have two people on your team, 3 people on the other team, and you'd have 3v3 with real people. And yeah, sometimes they would leave, sometimes they would be replaced with bots, but you never had the freedom to just go in, just even an empty arena or an arena with bots, and just practice learning the arena. Like Justin said before, that's going to be one of the most important things going into this game when it releases, to learn as a new player, is learning the arena, how you can use the walls, use your momentum, learn these mechanics, and abuse them to every positive way that you can in order to succeed. And without being able to practice that before going into a game, it would kind of suck.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Justin?
Things that I would add to the game. It's really hard to, because there are some things that, we can kind of assume might come to the game. And when I think about things that can come to the game, I think mechanics, and I think, what is this missing for me? And one of those things would have to be, and it might sound out of left field, um, but I wish you could jump higher. I understand if you jump off of the walls or whatever, that you're up in the air. But if you jump on a flat surface, I don't know about you, but it doesn't go nearly as high as we saw in the trailers. In the trailer for the game, we saw somebody jump over 2 people.
Yeah.
I can't jump like that. Last time I tried to pull off one of those jumps, my skate hit somebody in the face. You know what I mean? And it would be really nice to have a higher jump. You see in the GIF down there, you see, you're crouching, you're pumping. What if when you were crouching, it built up a very small gauge that allowed you to jump higher if you held that down before jumping? Just nothing crazy, nothing like, supernatural or superhuman, but just a slightly higher jump or a new mechanic that allows you to kind of mess with and toy with the height that you jump. Short jumps, high jumps, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I think adding anything to like the height of the jump would, I think it would make it a lot harder, and like to defend against someone with that. Like you're doing this clip, you're going so fast, no one can catch up to you. And if one person was able to come towards you and you were able to somehow jump over them, it's without like, because the main way you get the ball out of someone's hand is knocking them down. If you add something to game that takes away that main defensive, like mechanic that can get you the ball back, it kind of almost makes it impossible to get the ball back. And while I think that would be really cool and maybe could be thrown into like a side game mode, like not necessarily in the main game mode, but could be thrown into the side, that'd be interesting to see. There's a lot they could do with this.
It all comes down to that balance versus offense and defense, right?
Yeah.
You have offense on one side, which has all of these different mechanics, and ways to move around the track. And then you have the defensive side, which is a whole completely different mindset, because you're not just driving around the map doing whatever you want. You're trying to catch that person. And then on top of that, you have even lower mechanics, just simply based on whether you're carrying the ball or not. You have 2 different completely move sets there. And so I think, like you had said, I think adding mechanics also does cause for this sort of, there needs to be a balance in the whole part of it so that one set of moves isn't more powerful than the other.
I think there needs to be more defensive mechanics. Like, all we have right now is essentially just a tackle. But what the offense has going against the tackle is they can dodge around that tackle. And if we add what you say, and you're going to add a jump that can essentially just jump over a person, then we can't even use that tackle to tackle you because you're just going to jump over us. So how as a defensive player would you how would you get him? How would you get the ball? It's essentially impossible.
I would say it definitely is tougher. But like I said before, I don't think we've got defense cracked yet. And I am kind of worried about changing anything, because I really do believe that defense and pass plays, I don't think we've seen anything. And I think during the next play test, I know me and Mob Spies, we had talked about it during the end of the last pre-alpha, was that there's still kind of a lot to be discovered in terms of strategies and the most efficient ways to move and the most efficient ways to play offense and defense, as well as the jobs of the people who aren't carrying your team. And I think there's a lot of that still needs to be figured out before we figure out what's overpowered and what's not.
Yeah. Looking at Twitch chat for one more suggestion, one of the things that people have been talking about, both in the chat and in Discord, that I've seen is the idea of having this hub that when you enter the game, your character's there, you can move around and you can go to places like like a shop for customization. You can go to a like a little area where you can queue for matches or go into a little training area, stuff like that, where like some games nowadays have where instead of just sitting in a menu, your menu is an interactive menu where you're actually moving around your character. You're almost learning the game the second you go into it versus throwing yourself into a game and just kind of winging it. And that would be really cool to see something like that implemented. During the pre-alpha, all we had was the menu with a play button, a customization button which said it wasn't implemented yet, a leaderboard which said it wasn't implemented yet, and the options, which at the time you couldn't change anything to my knowledge, but I assume they'll allow for different button combinations and for that to be changed up. But yeah, it was that stuff like that could be implemented into a hub area, which would be, I think that would actually fit with this game.
I would like to have button changes because for me, it was very hard to follow the player with the ball and to get an accurate tackle on them at sometimes when they're coming down the wall.
Yep.
And it's like, I mean, yes, there was ball cam, but to be honest, it wasn't accurately good. The ball was too small for it to be good. And
I mean, I agree. I agree with you completely. Though we need some sort of way to change. We need, what do you call them? Keybinds.
yeah, keybinds.
We need that so badly. If you're playing with a controller, you've got the left and right triggers for your pumping as well as your regular riding around. Let me tell you, I almost feel like my fingers were cramped out to the point where I felt like I was doing physical labor work. I mean, my hands were killing me at the end of this game, and it would be so much easier to be able to make that in a way that's more comfortable. Maybe I just squeeze my controller like I'm hulking out ready to rip it in half.
No, it was not just you.
Playing for so long, I mean, my fingers cramped up real bad playing the game. Just constantly having my index fingers on the triggers. It hurt.
Well, as you can see in this little picture here,
the graphic.
Yeah, the trap wheel's like on that right bumper, and I'm thinking like we don't need that there. Probably a better place to put it would be on the right stick, and we could move the camera somewhere else. But essentially, what I'm focused on is you can move the camera with the right stick and access to tackle, which is a very, very bad idea because then you have to take your thumb off of the right stick and then press to tackle. Yep. But let's say if you move tackle to this right bumper here, you could essentially just look at them and tackle them while looking at them.
Yeah, I think changing the button, being able to change button combinations will definitely be a positive addition to the game. I think one more thing from Raptor, a better ball cam. Absolutely. I never used ball cam. Ball cam was you either had to always have it on or always have it off, and having it on was just so it didn't really have a benefit.
Yeah, leave it off. I couldn't stand it.
I think either fix it or figure out a way to change it into something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, for right now, I think the game is in a good spot. Obviously, it's going to change. It's going to be different than what it is in the pre-alpha. But the dev team, I'm cheering for them. I have all my faith that they will release a great game in early 2020.
Yeah.
And that we'll get to see, hopefully, the game in a better build before the end of the year. But speaking of builds, there were a couple places that they brought the game to for people to play. I believe the first one was it Gamescom?
Well, you had Rio before that.
Oh yeah, they brought it to Rio, and they had people play it down there. I believe people still said at the time it was still a pre-alpha build, and it didn't have anything changed from what everyone played from the E3 build. And then Gamescom and UBXP were the same week, and they had a lot more people come out to those. We had someone that went to to UBXP. Some people went to Gamescom and got to play the game again, and tons of new people got to experience the game. Mercy in chat said Rio, Canada, Gamescom, UBXP, and now PAX. Yes, and that was the last one. Was PAX West.
In this picture here, you can see like we have the 3 winners of the tournament, and I brought it upon myself to actually try to talk to them and get some information about their experience at PAX West. And well, essentially what they said was there weren't a lot of people participating in this tournament. It was just like 8 total teams, and there was only so that means like only 3 rounds per or 3 games per team. So, but they did change like I know they changed. Oh my god, I actually can't remember what they changed, but players did get practice rounds before the tournament, and Fickle, he said that there was now like a speed limit for the new players when they were playing the tournament, so they didn't get overtaken by those who did play the pre-alpha.
Ooh.
Yeah, he was glitching out every time he went over 100 kilometers an hour.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was confirmed, but he had noticed that there was I think he had mentioned an issue regarding reaching certain higher speeds and maybe jumping up the walls and stuff. But I think it was just a different build of the game than the one that we got to experience at E3. At each one of these events, I've made sure to be in contact with somebody who's given me the build number that's down at the bottom of the screen. Each one at each event has been different, so who knows what it could have been. I can't imagine that they would nerf speed because I for one love going 140 and would hate to have that cut off after having a taste of it.
Yeah, and just so people know, the 3 people in the picture are King Cobra, Z-Max, and True Blue Killer, and they're in the picture next to the amazing set that they brought out.
Oh, it's so good.
It looks so good. They had these nice computers, and honestly, and they got looks like they won very nice headsets.
Astro A50s to be exact.
Yes, which are very, very nice headsets. So it looks like they're really passionate, both the dev team and the players, for this game. Everything I've seen about it looks fantastic, and cannot wait to see more.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, the big thing I want to push to is that the reason, for me at least, and I'm sure a lot of other people are trying to pursue it for competitive reasons feel the same way. I mean it when I say it that these devs are onto something. When I first played it, I think it was literally after my first match that I looked at my wife and I'd said, this is the new game. I mean, this is it. And I haven't touched Rocket League in the since June, since I played it.
Yeah.
And it's just because after 4 years of playing the same competitive sports game, when you bring in something fresh and bring in something new, it revives all of those memories and all of those emotions that I felt when I first played Rocket League the first time. And all of these different ways you can score in this and that. I have not been this excited about scoring a goal in years, and that's just over the top for me. This is hands down going to be my favorite game for the rest of this year, for next year, and as long as I can keep playing it, man, I'm going to be so happy with how this has turned out.
Are you worried that like the same thing's gonna happen to you with this game that did for Rocket League, where it just gets repetitive and boring and kind of in a really toxic environment?
I worry about that a little bit, but at the same time, I had played Rocket League for 4.5 years. So if we compare that to now, it'd be 2023 by the time I'm done playing with Roller Champions. And even though I played for 4 years, I'm still very grateful for all of the memories that I have through playing Rocket League and all of the people that I had met through a regular basis and the opportunities I was given. But all it does is makes me even more excited to do that exact same thing a second time with Roller Champions. And so here's to another 4 years of getting to play what is now one of my favorite esports competitive games, whatever you want to call it, of all time, easily.
Not even out.
I mean,
yet.
it won an award. It won the award at Gamescom for was it best sports game?
Yeah, best sports game.
Yeah. It had been out for 4 days. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I don't remember if Rocket League got any awards like that, but this game isn't even out yet, and it's already getting awards for its category, and that's amazing. They've really outdone themselves for a company that doesn't make sports games. They've made the best sports game all of a sudden, and it's already got a big community behind it where everyone just loves the game, can't wait to play it, and a dedicated dev team that cannot wait to wake up in the morning and work on it. But I think that wraps up things up. I know Raptor said that each headset was like $300, so like $900 for a tourney that's not even in the beta yet. that's dedication.
But yeah, I mean, where we sit right now, I can't name them right off the bat. I was just talking to somebody the other day. Uh, as far as I know, Roller Champions is done on their little convention tour. They're not really appearing anywhere else. They're not popping up anywhere else with anything real crazy. So we're all just sitting around waiting for some sort of news, some sort of developer update on how things are going and what our plans are. Roadmap would be really nice and things like that. But we're all just sitting around waiting for this playtest. Um, and that's really all we've got, and that's where we sit right now. In the meantime, you can come hang out in the Discord. We talk about Roller Champions every single day so that we can try to keep this hype going. If you played pre-alpha and you have a friend that didn't play it, there is no reason why not to get, why not to have them try it. It's a free-to-play game. There's no excuse not to give it a shot. And if you have friends that you haven't told about the game, believe me, you should, because there's a lot of us here that are really supporting the idea of this game, and it's up to the community to kind of make that happen.
If when the next playtest comes out, one thing I really want to see would be new maps. Like, I know we only had the Acapulco map, and the Mexico Arena, but I want to see, like, what would Antarctica look like? What would Alaska look like? What would Brazil look like in this game? Because I want to see, like, a setting that kind of like Overwatch does with their kind of city themes.
I mean, I will say I want in the trailer we had seen like old school before our big Roller Champions star in the trailer was a big famous skater. There was that scene where she was just at the regular skate park doing her thing, and I want like an old urban central-esque styled map that's just not a big stadium with a ton of people looking, and it's just like old-fashioned skate.
All right, well, thank you everyone who came out to watch the stream. This was the Roller Champions podcast. I'm Stealth Ninja. Thank you, Flirp. Thank you to our special guest, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
For coming out and talking about everything competitive in esports with this game. I cannot wait to see what comes out of it. Thank you guys again. I posted the Twitter and YouTube links in the chat. You can always go to our Twitter. All the links should be there. They're like under the stream. If you're watching this on YouTube, we do stream this on our podcast on Twitch once a month at twitch.tv/rcpodcaster. And thank you guys for coming out.
Bye.
Later.